We all know death is inevitable. But today we are going to talk about some of the strangest and the funniest ways people have actually died. It might sound unbelievable and funny. And the death of someone is never funny. But a man named Hans Steininger, a 16th century mayor from Austria, was famous for two reasons. 1. Having the world's longest beard, it was 4 feet and 7 inches, that's 1.50 meters long, and 2. For dying due to his beard. Steininger was said to often roll his beard up into his pocket and out of the way. But when a fire broke out one day, Hans in his panic forgot to roll up his beard. And accidentally stepped on his beard. Then, having lost his balance, he stumbled and fell down a flight of stairs, breaking his neck, killing him instantly. It's been over 450 years since Steininger's death, and before he was buried, the townspeople cut off Hans Steininger's beard and locked it in a long glass case in the town's historical museum, so that all of the years he'd spent growing it were not lost forever. It was chemically preserved so that it never degrades. And is currently on display at the District Museum Herzogsburg in Braunau, Austria. Jack Daniels, who was born September 5, 1846, was an American distiller and businessman, best known as the founder of the Jack Daniels Tennessee Whiskey Distillery. And in 1866 became the first registered business of its kind in America. It is claimed that their founder Jack Daniel died in a very unfortunate and sad way. He was said to always have had trouble remembering the combination to a safe in his office, and one day he kicked the safe in frustration, breaking his toe and forming an infection that slowly moved up his leg. And it would kill him 6 years later in Lynchburg on October 9, 1911. His cause of death was blood poisoning. Ironically, if he had just doused his toe in his own whiskey shortly after breaking it, the infection never would have occurred. And Jack Daniels' last words were before he died: "One last drink, please." Adolf Frederick, the King of Sweden, is also known as the king that ate himself to death, after having had one bite too many on Tuesday, February 12, 1771. Adolf Frederick was known for his overindulgence, and observed the holiday in a traditional manner by eating a lot of pleasurable foods in preparation for the season of Lent. After having meals consisting of lobster, caviar, sauerkraut, cabbage soup, smoked herring, and then washing his feast down with champagne, and 14 servings of his favorite dessert, called selma, which is bread dipped in a bowl of hot milk. But it seems 14 bowls was too much for his digestive system though, and it packed up just after he'd finished his meal. Which was the cause of his death. The saguaro is the largest cactus in the United States. Because saguaro's cacti grow so slowly, it can take 50 to 75 years for them to grow their first arms. After they reach 100 years old, they usually have several arms. The arms are very important to them because it allows them to store extra water. And this cactus can capture as much as 200 gallons of water in a single rainfall. The average saguaro weighs around 2 to 3 tons. One day in 1982, a man named Deodorant took to the desert with a shotgun and 2 rifles, and at close range began blasting away with his shotgun at a saguaro cactus, which stood 26 feet tall, and in his effort to make it fall, an arm of the cactus, weighing 230 kilograms, 500 pounds, fell onto him and his car, ultimately crushing him to death. On May 9, 2003, a woman named Emma Black from England was on board the Ferry Val de Loire of Brittany Ferries service, which was traveling from Spain to England. Apparently, she went onto the deck of the ship in the early hours and stretched her arms out in the famous Kate Winslet pose from the movie Titanic. But the pose caused Emma to lose her balance and she fell overboard from the 9th deck and plunged 90 feet into the cold sea water, about 80 miles off the coast of Brittany, and her body only washed up on the French coast 8 months later in January 2004. The inquest heard that Miss Blackwell, of Winchester Gardens, had been heavily drinking on the ferry from Spain to England before the accident. The coroner Nigel Meadows recorded an open verdict. Jonathan Capewell from Oldham in England became so obsessed with smelling good and fresh that he would cover his entire body in deodorant at least twice a day. Sadly, he died on July 28, 1998 from a heart attack, after the deodorant gases built up in his body over months of repeatedly spraying himself in his unventilated bedroom. An inquest heard that Jonathan Capewell had 10 times the lethal dosage of propane and butane in his bloodstream. On the afternoon of Monday 17 October 1814, at the Horseshoe Brewery in St. Giles, London, a very sad industrial accident happened, when one of the iron rings around the beer tank snapped, causing the whole tank to rupture, sending a 15-foot high tsunami of 320,000 gallons of beer sweeping through the streets of London, claiming 8 people's lives. There were reports of the death of 9 more victims from alcoholic poisoning some days later, when hundreds of people were scooping up the liquid in the streets with whatever containers they could and drinking it. A man who was in his 40s from the Saitama prefecture in Japan had a pet hamster named Aiko, whose name translates as Little Love. But the man died from asthma after being bitten several times by his pet hamster in a city north of Tokyo, the Mainichi Shimbun. An autopsy found the man had a severe allergic reaction to protein contained in the hamster's saliva. Even before being admitted to the hospital, his heart and lungs had stopped functioning. But he died shortly afterwards. Anaphylaxis is an allergic disease that occurs when protein or other foreign substances enter the body multiple times and the immune system becomes oversensitive. The disease quickly paralyzes the victim's circulatory and respiratory organs. On September 30, 1996, Paul Stiller and his wife were bored and very intoxicated. To cure their boredom, they thought it would be fun to go out for a midnight drive. The couple's plan had been to light the sticks of dynamite and throw them out the car window while they was driving down the road. And around 2 a.m. in the morning, and armed with 2 sticks of dynamite, they started to put their plan into action. However, due to their state of intoxication, the couple's plan backfired when they lit the fuse on the explosive before rolling down the car window. Needless to say, the dynamite Paul was holding in his hand exploded, killing him, and leaving his wife in hospital in critical condition. It is said apparently, around 24 people die a year from being hit by champagne corks. And one of these cases was in Hong Kong, when 49-year-old Ding Xiangloing, who was a well-known Chinese billionaire businessman, died in his suite of the island Shangri-La Hotel during a reception he was holding for his 50th birthday. According to some of the 200 witnesses of the tragedy, after he gave a brief speech to the guests, he opened a bottle of champagne. It is while opening a champagne bottle that the billionaire was hit so violently in the temple by the cork, that it caused a fatal brain hemorrhage. Many witnesses actually laughed at first, finding it amusing as you normally do, but after a while an eerie silence rapidly overcame the crowd as Mr. Loeing remained unconscious. Despite all the efforts of the paramedics, sadly they could not save him and he died at the scene. That's the end of today's video. If you enjoyed, be sure to like and subscribe, and turn the notification bell on to be notified when we next post. Thanks for watching.